Hi, this is Albert Penello from Xbox, and you're listening to the Inner Circle podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Inner Circle podcast, the premier podcast for Xbox. I'm your host, KORX Kal-El, and with B Money 101 and Anchorman V, we make up the Inner Circle. Today we have with us Mr. Albert Penello, Senior Director of Product Management and Planning at Microsoft Corp for the Xbox division. We have a host of topics to talk about today, so let's go ahead and get started. First and foremost, I want to thank you, Mr. Albert Penello, for coming on the podcast and giving us an opportunity to talk with you. I know with your schedule, finding time it can be difficult, especially with the release of the Xbox One S, the upcoming holiday season, and of course, Project Scorpio next year. But before we dive into all things Xbox, I'd like to get a little history on you. How did you get started in the video game industry, and how did you find your way to Microsoft and the Xbox division?
How much time do we have? Are we gonna? Well, first off, thank you guys for having me. I am a very, very, very important person, and but I like to make time. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to this. I really appreciate you guys having me on, and it's really no trouble at all.
Okay.
How did I get started? Look, I'm old, so I've been in the video game business for. Let's see. I started in 1992 working in the video game industry.
Nice.
And I started answering telephones at Sega back in the Sega Genesis days. Actually, like even Master System days.
Oh, wow.
That's how I got started in the business. I got into a car accident with somebody that worked at Sega.
No.
And it's at Sega, because I thought, like, you guys don't know, like, back in those days, there was no video game industry, really.
Right.
Like, it was like, there was, like, guys who played video games, and you really didn't talk about it to anybody, and you sort of traded your Nintendo Power magazines on the down low. But, like, nobody played video games. There wasn't, like, a business of video games. There weren't even really, that many magazines about it.
Right.
So I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just a kid. I'm going to go to Sega and check it out like it's an amusement park or something. Like they'll just let me in and give me a tour. And I didn't realize that they were like a real business and stuff. And so I showed up at their door one Friday morning, walked in like, hey, can I look around? And they're like, what are you doing here? Like, we're a company, not Disneyland. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I left and I hit somebody's car on the way out.
Wow.
And it turns out that the guy whose car I hit, who I'm still friends with to this day, went to the same college that I was going to and stayed in the same dorm room that I was staying in when he went to college.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's an amazing luck, man.
It was so 3 weeks later, I started at Sega answering the phones.
Wow.
For a summer job.
Wow.
That is how I got in the big video game industry. So there you go.
That is insane. There's just a thing that it's all started because of a car accident, and and where you are today. That's incredible. That is the most.
I'm not really probably good at doing the like parent teacher conferences or whatever. Like you don't go like, don't do as I say, not as I do, kids. I would not recommend going around and running into people to get jobs. But yeah, that's how it happened for me. And then, I just worked my way. I worked my way up in Sega, and then I went back to school and got a job at EA.
Yeah, EA. I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, I worked at EA back in the 90s, and then got recruited to come work on this secret project called Xbox.
Nice.
About a year before the first one launched. So actually, October 2000. Almost. I think it's been like 16 years in October I've been here.
What was that like to work on the first Xbox?
It was awesome. We were all a lot younger. I mean, it's funny because I was like in my mid-20s when I started here.
Yeah. And,
it's just like you had a bunch of great guys. You still have great guys. And there's actually a lot more people still around to this day.
Right.
That I think people know about. But, it was a lot of fun. It was really small. And I think a lot of people didn't know what they were getting into. I was actually one of the few people that had even worked in the games business back then.
Right.
You had this kind of fun mix of Microsoft people and people at Microsoft that loved games and some industry folks that came up here. It was a lot of fun.
Wow. That's amazing. Isn't a crazy history story just to think about that. You got into a car accident, started working at Sega, moved up to EA while going to school, eventually got recruited to work on the Xbox, the OG Xbox, and now you're launching the Xbox One S console, Xbox 360, and so forth.
Yeah,
wow, that's incredible.
It is. It has been. I've been very blessed and very lucky to be in the right place at the right time and work with great people. And I love what I do. That doesn't hurt. And so, it's been great. It's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's a great story.
Anchor. You've heard of them, folks. If you want to get a good job, just go find out the person who already works there.
No. Don't do that.
No, kids listening at home. Work hard. Stay in school.
All right. So the Xbox One S was a bit of a surprise to some, and even more of a surprise after release as some things came to light. I thought it was really smart not to speak of any performance boosts, as you stated in the Eurogamer interview. But I have to ask, when you guys as a team started to come up with the blueprint for the hardware's future, what did the team envision with what we at TIC like to call the choice ecosystem between the Xbox One, Xbox One S, and Scorpio?
Wow, there's a lot of that's a big question with a lot of answers. We obviously we've done sort of these kind of console updates. Before we did 2 of them for 360. And then, well, not including, we did the one we launched with and then 2 others. And so, I think, you're going to get a chance to do it again. And those are really fun because you get a chance to just ask yourself questions about like, hey, now that I've made this decision, would I make the same decision again? And are there things I can change? And you've got real customer feedback on things.
Right.
And so it's really great, right? Because you don't know when you launch the first one and you make the changes. Some things people love, some things people don't like, some things people work out better than you expect.
Right.
So it's always fun to just sit down and say, okay, now we know everything. What would we do differently? And, technology, that's what's great about this business, is always moving forward. And so you also get a chance to figure out what's going to come next and see if there's an opportunity to leverage some of that technology in what you're building. So of course we knew 4K was going to land right about the time this console was going to land, and so with that, we talked a lot about whether or not we should do that and lead, and we decided to do it. And we knew about Scorpio, and we knew we were going to build a family of devices where everything was compatible. So it was really easy to make a lot of those choices because we knew, hey, we can get people we can build this cool new console, and since all the games and accessories are going to work, it's gonna flow perfectly into the stuff that we're going to do afterwards.
The way I look at it as you guys have tiers. When I talk to the TIC listeners on my own private show, I always refer to the Xbox One as the base console, and then the Xbox One S is that tier 2. And when Scorpio releases, that's your premium device. And I think about how you guys had the Xbox One controller and you sold it, and now you have one that you can design, which is a little bit less than the Elite controller. But the Elite controller is a premium device, and there's a premium market out there. So I always think about those things, and when I look at this choice, is what I call it, the choice ecosystem, is that no matter what you're getting an Xbox, you'll be able to play those games, but you have a choice whether you want the base, the S, which gives you 4K playback and upscale, as well as HDR, and then you have eventually in the future Scorpio. I really like that decision and things like that. I thought that was really smart.
I'm glad. I think that's a really, really great way of thinking about it, and I think it's, I think it totally aligns to how we think about it as well. And, you hear us talk about thinking beyond console generations, and that's really kind of what it's all about. It's not the idea that you want to not do consoles anymore, or that there's not going to be more performance, But if you go back and you look at console generations, they're always super exciting when something new comes out, but they're super disruptive. Like
Right.
they're really hard on developers, and because they got to learn how to program on these new machines. They're really hard on customers, which I think people sometimes forget. It's like you have to give up a lot of stuff.
Right.
And so the idea is like, can we smooth that out? Can this be more about a family? Can we think beyond just like we're going to do this one and then stop and start all over again?
Right.
So your idea of like a family of products and different tiers, because not everybody buys game consoles for the same reason.
Right.
And it's really easy for people to think that there's just one customer for consoles and their reason for buying is identical across the millions of people, but there isn't. It's just not true. So I think the way you think about it's great. I think this idea that like there are different tiers for different customers, we're going to let people choose. Do they care about price? Do they care about performance? Do they care about 4K? Right. But hey, it doesn't matter. You can't go wrong because your games are going to work, your accessories are going to work. And I think that's just a different way of approaching it.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. So with the Xbox One Windows 10 combination, it's been a big part of the division's new direction. For the most part, I think fans have taken the thought of exclusive games headed to Windows 10 and PC fairly well, at least recently. And business-wise, we all see the bigger picture in the expansion of the Xbox ecosystem and its users using the Windows 10 makes sense to any real smart person. However, what are your thoughts on the notion that you'll no longer need an Xbox with the majority of flagship franchises heading to Windows 10?
I think that, well, I think that this is one of the things that you guys kind of pointed out, which is there's like a debate or a discussion that you can have with, a certain type of people online, and you want to argue details and argue nuance, but the reality is that most people don't make that kind of choice.
Right.
You guys know as well as I do, I think there's just two things that are just true. Today, if you play games, you're playing games on just about everything you own.
Right.
Right. You're playing games on your phone when you're like doing whatever. You're playing games on your console when you want to lay back in front of that big TV. And you're playing PC games when you want that kind of keyboard and mouse up close, kind of, highly customized kind of experience. Gamers play. We know this. Even guys that are diehard console gamers, we know play on their phone and their PC.
Right.
And guys that are hardcore PC gamers probably have a console and a phone. So to me, it just does the idea that like by bringing games to the PC suddenly means that people don't want consoles anymore. It doesn't ring true to how gamers really behave.
Right.
So really all we're doing is we're just giving more people the opportunity to play games and connect with their friends. You guys probably know this. Most people who do party chat on Xbox are not actually chatting in the same game.
Right.
Most people that do party chat just use it as like a virtual, just like we're doing now. I'm playing some game on my, console. I'm playing Forza. You guys are playing Doom or whatever, and we're just chatting.
Right.
So why not bring that to the PC? Right. Why not let people communicate while, you're on the console and the PC? That doesn't take anything away. It just keeps you in touch with your friends.
Right.
I think it's the same thing for the games. It's just more choice for more people, and the idea that it means that we're not going to be in the business of consoles or you don't need a console, I just don't think it's realistic.
Well, you have the diehards, the fanboys, and the guys out there. You know how it is when you have the exclusives, and people feel like they've lost exclusives and things like that. And even myself, in general, it's taken me a while to not understand what you guys were doing business-wise. Just as a hardcore console guy, it took me a while to really buy in on the ecosystem that you guys are trying to build between Windows 10 and Xbox and things like that. So I think, you have people out there, and this is the honest truth and being realistic, that I think a lot of the people on the internet think that the internet is the entire, I guess you could say the entire install base for these consoles, where really it's not. You have all these casual people, these moms and these dads and these college guys that may not be hardcore, but they go out and they buy these consoles. And they don't really care about the rhetoric of my console has this X amount of exclusives and, my console is better than yours and things like that. So looking at the bigger picture and realizing that having games go to Windows 10, being playable between the Xbox One and the PC, growing that install base, obviously more sales means more revenue, profit that goes back into the division for more games and IPs. I'm buying all in, so I'm all for that, man. And I'm really, really hoping that it's a big success and things like that. So I'm definitely excited about it. I can't wait to see how it all pans out. But I know you guys still have a lot of work to do with Windows 10 in the store and the integration and things like that. So I look forward to it.
Yeah, I honestly, you said it better than I could. I think that's a great way of thinking about it. And yeah, we still have a lot of work to do. But I think at the end of the day, you kind of consider yourself a console guy or a PC guy first and foremost.
Right.
And giving PC guys the opportunity to play Quantum Break and Killer Instinct doesn't really take anything away from the console guys.
Right.
And so it just gives more people a chance to play great games on the device that they want to play on.
Agreed. Very quickly, I have 2 fan questions for you.
Okay.
So the first fan question is, did you guys have doubts after E3 that announcing the Slim while also announcing Scorpio may have an effect on its adoption rate?
After E3 or before E3?
Like after, like you announced the Slim and then you announced Scorpio, and there was all this talk about, oh, Microsoft killed the Slim because they announced Scorpio. But then you put it out there and that thing sells out like, a bag of candy.
Yeah. No, well, I'll tell you, it's good. It would, like, obviously it's a question you ask when you're having the discussion about whether or not to announce or not. Right. So, like, of course, you ask yourself a lot of questions when you're going to do any announcement at any time. You always ask questions.
Right.
Heck, should we announce the thing at E3 or announce it before or after Xbox One S? You ask that question.
Right.
So, of course, we asked that question. But no, I personally, I was never worried. I was really never worried about it. I wasn't surprised that people are asking the question. I'm not surprised, but I was never worried. And here's why I was never worried. I was never worried because the Xbox One S is rad. I knew it was going to be an awesome console. I knew it was going to beat people's expectations. I knew how good the product was that we were going to launch. Mm-hmm. And I knew our strategy of like having games and accessories be compatible meant that, I didn't have to make a hard choice.
Right.
Of course, if we were announcing that Project Scorpio was an all-new system and nothing worked, then you'd be like, well, yeah, that's dumb because anything I buy today is not going to work in a year.
Right.
But everything you buy today is going to work when Scorpio comes out.
Right.
So the strategy made sense. The product was awesome. And like you kind of just said it. There's a lot of people on the internet that pay attention to this stuff, but like Christmas, my joke is like Christmas doesn't stop because Scorpio is not coming until next year.
Right.
Like people still are going to go out and buy something for holiday. People are still buying 4K TVs this year. People still want to play Forza and Recore and Gears of War. And so I was personally never worried. I thought, I'm just glad that people were as enthusiastic about Xbox One S as I was hoping they would be. Nice. So it's a good question, but no, I was. And lastly, I want to say I like that we let people know ahead of time.
Right.
I like that people can now make an informed decision. So next year, when Scorpio comes out, at least they knew.
Oh, I think you guys did more than that. Announcing Scorpio put the industry on notice. I don't care what nobody says in the media. I don't care what anybody listening to the show says. Announcing Scorpio, as a console. I know there's PCs out there that does this, but as a console, put the industry on notice. And that was big. That was huge. And I don't think you guys give yourselves enough credit for that. That's a big thing to do. You could have kept that a secret, announced the Slim, and gone on about your business and had a great show at E3. But announcing that at the end to me was big because regardless of how people look at it, you still are competing. I know people don't want that to be realistic, but you're still competing for the gamer and allowing the gamers to make an informed decision about Scorpio and what its potential is. That's big. A year out? A year out knowing what else is coming ahead of it? Oh my God, that was huge. The second fan question was, and this is a personal one, what is your favorite game of all time? And what is your most anticipated game coming this holiday for Xbox One?
Okay. The favorite game of all time is easy. We'll test you to see if you guys know what this game is.
Okay.
Did you ever play Star Wars the arcade game? The old vector graphics Atari arcade machine.
I did play it. I was I don't know when it came out though. I remember playing those in laundromats when I was very, very young.
I think it came out in like 83. I think that came out. I actually have that machine at my house.
No.
I have that arcade machine at my house. I still play it. It is on right now. It is my all-time favorite game. You go play that game on a stand-up arcade machine. It is still fun as heck.
Wow.
It is my all-time. I liked it so much I bought the machine.
Nice.
Much to my wife's chagrin, but yes, I do in fact have a gigantic arcade machine in my house. Looking forward to most. I'm a car guy, and so honestly, I know this sounds like I'm sort of like talking for the home team, but I love Forza, and I was a big Horizon fan, so I'm really, really looking forward to.
So am I. Oh my gosh!
I gotta agree with you on that one. Forza Horizon 3 is shaping up to be a really good-looking game.
Forza Horizon.
Beautiful. Look, I mean, man, it's beautiful. You got the cross-play on PC.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great.
Forza Horizon as a franchise has been to me, that has been an amazing addition to the Xbox library. Because I'm not I grew up on, I was born in the 80s. I'm an 80s baby. But I grew up on Super Nintendo, and I grew up on the original PlayStation and Dreamcast and things like that. So I had a PS2, and I played Gran Turismo, and I was into Gran Turismo back in the day. But Forza, because of the sim part of it, I could never stay on it long enough. So when Horizon came out, it really captured me because I really liked the Need for Speed Underground, the Need for Speed Most Wanted, and it gave me that feel of open world speed and things like that. Yeah. I thought that was, I think that Horizon is amazing. Playing it at E3, it was great, and it looked amazing too. So I'm definitely excited about that.
Yeah, and the good thing about the Horizon series, it really appeals to the more arcadey racer guys. Mm-hmm. And because there's some people who are just really, really love the simulating, a simulator game. I know a couple guys, even on YouTube, who just love the simulation aspect of Forza. But then you got people who like me and Len who really don't care about the simulation as much, but we love how Horizon plays.
I couldn't stress enough to Dan Greenwald was standing in line at the Fan Fest.
Yep.
We didn't need passes, but I just wanted to go to Fan Fest anyway because I never experienced it. But I got a chance to talk with Dan and myself and B Money 101, who is our third partner who couldn't make it to the interview today. I kept stressing, I'm like, Dan, you guys do, you and Playground do such a great job with Forza, but I still want something that is, I know it's like open world, kind of arcade, kind of sim, but I just want something that gives me NOS, something that gives me heavy drift, something that gives me, music that Project Gotham. Even though Project Gotham didn't have NOS, I know a lot of people are still clamoring for Project Gotham, or that dub edition with hip hop tracks and things like that. And he smiled and said they've never done anything like that, and it's something to think about. So I wonder what they'll make in the future. But it would be great if they kind of took a step where maybe they did something in Japan with the neon lights and the streets and things like that. I think that'd
a little
cool.
more street city focused.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, those guys love cars, man. Those guys they live it, they love it. And I'm with you. I'm glad that Horizon's sort of back in the catalog again.
Yeah, very important. Okay, Al. So we know we can't truly talk about Project Scorpio because it's currently a project. But recently, in an interview at Gamescom, Aaron Greenberg spoke about the end of a console generation. Now, I know we kind of just spoke about it. You just brought it up a few minutes ago, but I like the idea of upgrading consoles without losing all of our content, our games, and etc. What are your thoughts on this direction, and do you think it could be industry changing?
We kind of hit on it a little bit. I agree. I mean, I think Aaron's words, they're good, and I love Aaron. He's a good friend of mine. And I think people are taking the end is a little bit different than sort of
what you guys are saying. Yeah.
Well, kind of the idea of like we don't think about these distinct hard stops.
Right.
We think about like these as parts of the family, like you said, and they can continue to upgrade over time while your library and your accessories and your friends and Xbox Live and everything goes with you. So yeah, I mean, I think maybe people might be doing that thing they do where they just read the headline and then they react to the headline without looking at the statement and the words.
Right.
But I mean, Aaron's right on the money. We think about a world now where it's like, this the PC and the console and the upgrades that we're doing are just kind of this continuous thing that happens over time. And as long as your games keep working and you can keep playing with your friends, and that's going to be like the new way that the business works.
Right.
Versus these hard, disruptive stops.
Have you guys ever thought about how to phase out the older consoles? Like, obviously you have a family of consoles. And if you guys continue on a path where you're consistently upgrading the console, like after Scorpio, you have your next set of upgrades that is, considered not a next generation, but the next generation of the console in a way, because you're adding more power, more specs, you're doing more things tech-wise. When do you begin to, and I'm not sure if you guys have even thought about this or planned this, but when do you begin to sort of phase out the Xbox One, or do you just never phase it out at all?
No, that's a great question. I hate speculating about the future and things that might or might not happen.
Right.
But I can kind of look at the PC world a little bit and sort of say, like, have PC games like really phased out? Like that you can still play PC games that are like really, really old.
Mm-hmm.
And like sometimes games don't go, and like certainly there's games that don't play on Pentiums anymore.
Right.
But when you really think about it all up, when you think about the PC, you don't ever feel like there was a time when you had a PC that just didn't work anymore. I mean, unless your PC's like super old.
Right.
So I can just tell you, I think about it like that. And so I think if you look at how the PC works, that, if you are a guy who likes games, you think about the PC as the platform where games kind of always live.
Right.
And maybe there's exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, it's true. So I think that's the best kind of way to think about how we're thinking about it.
Awesome. That's actually great. As soon as you brought up PC, I started thinking like a PC. It's like at some point, you just have games that just won't play because the hardware is just too old, and developers are moving forward and things like that. So I guess that would happen. Not saying that's what you're saying completely, but I assume eventually that's what would happen if you're in a situation where the generations aren't the way they used to be, where you're going for a hard stop and then you're shifting everything over with new stuff. You just eventually move past what the old hardware was capable of.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of thinking about it, at this time. However, I will say I think it's important. Like, this is not like if you're asking, do we have like this thing where tomorrow? No, I mean, that's the whole thing about the games. Again, that's what's great. The games you own, the accessories you own, all that stuff, the controller, that Elite controller you bought's all still going to work. I'm not even really worried about this problem because it's kind of so far in the future.
Gotcha.
The decision to build the Xbox One Slim with HDR and 4K streaming capabilities was the right decision. Has been paying off big for the division, according to reports. Now you guys have released a slim Xbox One with the same hardware and throw in an Elite controller, but you didn't. Why add HDR, 4K upscaling, upclock the CPU, and did the hardware chipset change at all? And if so, is an upclock for the Xbox One capable for similar performance increases in select games?
Yeah, I think I talked a little bit about this in that Digital Foundry article that I did. And, I'm the guy that both said at E3 there would be absolutely no difference, then was also the guy that said, oh, yeah, by the way, there is a difference. And I'm fully aware of those two statements. But it's really like, again, in the internet, sort of, it's easy to look at those two statements, but and say like, oh my God, their messaging is mixed up or whatever. I did it very intentionally. I don't want anybody buying an Xbox One because they think they're going to get a box that performs better. When we made the decision to put 4K and HDR in, we knew that in order to take advantage of HDR, it was going to require a little bit more processing power.
Right.
And we didn't want the games to have to suffer to do that. So we didn't want someone to have to make the choice between HDR and a couple of frames per second. So we took the opportunity when we did the size reduction and everything to increase the frequency a little bit. And that was why we did it. That's the only reason we did it. That's why it's there. That was the purpose of the decision. It turns out, as you guys know, I'm sure you follow the Digital Foundry thing.
Yep.
There's, some games who use dynamic resolution or variable frame rates can see a little bit of a tweak between the two, a little bit of a difference.
Mm-hmm.
But I was afraid that if we open that door even the slightest at E3, that it would get completely misinterpreted and people would think that we're trying to sell this on that feature.
Absolutely.
And so I just said no. Like I just said, let's be really clear. The answer is no. And then when we have time to talk to, like Richard at Digital Foundry, who understands the technology and explain it in more detail,
right,
we'll, let people know what's really going on.
So the Xbox One S, to use more college terms since kids are going back to school now, is more. The Xbox One S was more of a second draft of a paper where there's not a lot of changes, just a few slight changes. It's not a whole new paper though.
That's why. I think that's a great way. Like whenever we have one chipset, and through the life cycle of these consoles, you make little adjustments just as time goes on, and just for cost reductions, or because you're having a new person make it, or there's some new thing available. And so we just said, hey, we're making a couple of changes to the box. We're shrinking the chip a little bit. We're adding the 4K decode stuff and some of the little food that's needed for 4K. We're going to make one little tiny tweak to make it run just a little bit faster, and that was it. But it just isn't something I want people to really focus on because so few games take advantage of it, and it's such a small change.
I thought that was really smart as well. Because there was a lot when we came back from E3. We had spoken personally, and I had asked you a few questions about things like that. And when I came back, we did a podcast here and there. We spoke to people on Twitter. And the one thing I kept stressing was that for the most part, the parts are the same. Of course, there's been adjustments, but, people think, oh, there's a new chipset. It is way more powerful than the Xbox One. And I think people wanted to compare it to whatever Sony was trying to do with the Neo, being that Scorpio was kind of taking it to the next level. So I wanted to make sure that people didn't blow it out of proportion. And right. I'm glad that you didn't say anything, because lately that's what happens with the media. They'll take words, something that Phil said, something that Aaron might have said, and they'll put a headline on it, and the next thing you know, everybody's reading it, and it's either a snippet of something or it's blown out of proportion, and you guys have to go and rebut it or change it, and you have to keep doing it. And one of the things that, us podcasters and some of the Xbox guys out there get to talking about is trying to make sure that the message is clear, so that way we're all on the same page and no one is confused about anything. So I thought that was really important, the decision to wait. And then boom, here's a surprise. Yeah, you get a small frames bump. Here's 5 frames, 6 frames here. Hey, it's locked. It doesn't drop anymore when it's sitting at 30. I thought that was great. And if people are interested in getting a Slim because of 4K and HDR, which I got a chance to see Gears in HDR, and to me, and this is my personal opinion, I thought it looked better than Gears on PC in 4K. I'm pretty sure the textures were better, but the color scheme for it just popped. It just made Gears look amazing in HDR with the Slim. So if you have an HDR TV and you plan on getting an Xbox, I recommend highly picking up a Slim. Definitely. Because if I had it, I have a 4K TV, but I don't have HDR, so I'm just going to wait for Scorpio. But if I had one, I would have definitely picked up a Slim.
Yeah, I bought a set probably a month or two before E3. And so I had a little bit of inside info. So I did buy one with HDR when I bought mine, and I agree with you. I think when people see it, 4K is interesting, right? Because it's one of those things that's hard to describe until you've seen it, and because you have a set. Like,
right.
People want to just lump it into like, oh, it's just 3D all over again or something else all over again. It's like, no, it really isn't. I mean, it's really 4K and HDR are amazing, and the stuff looks great, and even the upscaled stuff on the Xbox One S and 4K looks great. So I'm with you. I agree. I think it's awesome.
Okay. Well, here's our last fan question before we get to the final question and we head out of here. Has the team been optimistic with the success of the Xbox One Slim for what you guys have going forward?
Look, I think the team's always optimistic. We love this stuff and we take it seriously. And, there's a reason why you've got guys like Phil and Mike and all those guys are out on Twitter, and we've got the site where we get the feedback. Like, we love the product. Like, we're guys that use it. And sometimes, you do something you think people are going to like. They don't like it. And then, hey, we got to hear about it. And so I've never really seen us not optimistic. Even when things at launch, and people weren't as happy as we would have liked, I think we were optimistic that we'd be able to, change and fix it and adapt and listen to our fans. And so now, right now, coming off of E3, we felt really good about, like I said, we felt really good about the Xbox One S. We're really good about what's going on with Scorpio. We had guys and gals that are on the team in the video talking about how excited that they are, people you don't know.
Yeah, just that was great.
Real people on the team and sharing their excitement for it. So, I mean, I would say, of course, right now we're feeling good and we're really excited. We got a lot of work to do still. We got a lot more to share with people over the next year, but I tend to think you see Phil, the guy you see in interviews is the guy that I work with.
Right.
He's no different. When you see Mike Ibarra, he's the same guy. When he's not tweeting or talking to folks or talking to you guys down at the show. Right. So we're always a pretty enthusiastic crew, actually.
I believe so, man. I said this the other day. I think that the Xbox executives and the guys who work for Microsoft, and listen, I'm not trying to lay it on thick here, okay? I'm just saying.
Lay it on, man. I love it. I'll take it.
I'm not trying to lay it on thick here. I'm just saying from my own experience that this team is the most down-to-earth team, and they're real gamers that you'll find at any company. Now, I don't podcast for PlayStation. I don't podcast for Nintendo, so I don't know how they operate. I can tell you that Mike Ibarra popped in the show on one of our network shows, the Multiverse Podcast, just to be in the chat with people. You don't get that very often. You just don't get that. So I think that, you guys being so close to the community is super important. And I think the fans, when things don't go right, they almost feel hurt. You know what I'm saying? Because it feels so personal because everybody knows you guys and you're talking and we're communicating. You're on gaff and things like that. So I think for the Xbox community, it's a little bit different from everybody else and things like that. But I think it's great. Honestly, I really do.
Well, I appreciate it. I love talking to you guys. I love whenever I get a chance to talk to people. I like the feedback, positive and negative, because we always try and come from a place of doing the best thing we can for the fans.
Right.
Doing the thing we think fans are going to like. And, sometimes we didn't. And, that's the best way to hear how to make it better.
Right. So, Albert, as we come up on our final question, I know you have to be super secretive about Project Scorpio, but it's on everyone's mind. I've read and watched how some of the media has tried to downplay the potential of the console from its 6 teraflops. It's not enough power to game in 4K, or it will cost too much and it won't sell. Now, this isn't a direct question about the hardware per se, but why go into 4K gaming? The thing that I loved about E3 was how you guys presented that commercial. But the one thing that stuck with me with the presentation was that Phil talked about uncompromised 4K gaming. Do you think you guys really want to try to, and this is speculative, of course, but do you think you guys really want to try to reach for that 4K native 60 frames per second?
That's a great question. So I do, and here's why. You have to have a goal. Like when you decide you're going to do a piece of technology, and you guys know this, you're guys that follow the industry, you know, that's like, when do you want to launch and how much can it cost and how much can you afford to put in the box, you know, and there's all these decisions. But at some point you have to say, like, this is what we want to do. So, and Phil kind of teased this up. We didn't, and this isn't a slam, and I don't want this to be taken as a slam on what anybody else is doing, but we didn't want to take a half step. So what's great is that, you know, Phil used to run studios, and we've got, you know, Bonnie and Shannon and Alan and Dan and Ken and all these studio guys and all these technology guys. And we said, look, like, if we're going to do this, we want to make a technology goal for ourselves. So the goal was, can we take the same level of graphics, the same frame rate, the same lighting effects, the same number of enemies and AI on screen, and deliver that in 4K? No compromises. I don't have to have half the enemies on screen. I don't have to, like, reduce the effects. I don't have to, like, make the game smaller. I want to be able to take an Xbox One game today that's in 1080p 60, and I want it to be 4K 60 on this new box. Right. And we built the box to deliver that goal.
Wow. So
we know that the box will do what we wanted it to do. Right. Now, where I think people get confused, and then people say, like, where our messaging is weird, is not every developer is going to use it that way.
Right.
Not every developer is going to decide to take that 6 teraflops and do 4K 60 with it.
Right.
They might decide for their game or their engine or their artistic vision that they want to do something different, and that's great. That's fine. But our goal was to build a box that could deliver true 4K games at the same level of fidelity that you see your current Xbox One games. That's the box we're building. We know we can do it. We wouldn't have went out and said it if we didn't think we could do it. We got a lot of work to do it.
Right.
But that was our goal. And
right.
So I'm not, you know, it's fun watching the speculation. I get on the threads and I watch like everybody else.
Right.
But it is super important, I think, for you guys and for the listeners to understand that was just our goal for the hardware.
Right.
That's not the same thing as going and telling developers what they need to do, mandating features, mandating frame rates or resolution. We don't do that.
Right.
And so that I'm not going to say that every game will be 4K 60.
Right.
Because developers might choose not to do that, and that's all right.
I think that's great, honestly, being transparent and being honest, because the thing that you don't want is to say something and then not be able to hit it or not be able to make it. And you look at Xbox One, and as successful for whatever people think out there, the Xbox One is a very successful console. And I'm very glad that it is where it is today. But obviously there are some things that people may not be happy with when it comes to resolution or maybe when it comes to frames and things like that. So having a console that can do what you guys set it to do and know that there won't be any sacrifices when it comes to anything, I think that's super important. And it's going to be a big selling point for the gamers out there. And I'm excited for it.
So.
I mean, it's on my list. I'm
excited for it too. I think it's going to be great. I can't wait for us to talk more about it.
Definitely excited. Well, I want to thank you, Albert, for answering that question, man.
I can tell you one thing for sure.
Really?
I can give you one exclusive. Right. I give you one exclusive bit of information. Are you ready for this? No one else has this bit of info. It's going to be huge. No faceplates.
No faceplates.
You guys on your last podcast were talking about bringing back faceplates. I can tell you today, no faceplates.
Oh, who brought that up? I was so mad somebody brought that up.
No, we were doing the last show, and we were talking about how, like, with the Scorpio being as expensive as we expect it to be.
Right.
that people buying a bunch of different types like that just to customize it, we thought it would be down. So we were trying to think of something, maybe like face plates or skins or something. Or we were trying to think of something else like that.
I said face plates. What is this? 2004 or something, like 2005? Like, they're not bringing back face plates. Come on, man.
That made me laugh. That made me laugh when I listened to it. So I can give you that one piece of info. There you go.
That's hilarious.
You got a scoop.
That was hilarious. And that was brutal at the same time.
My face is totally red. You don't see it, right?
Oh, that was a good one. Oh man, that was fun. I had a lot of fun, man. I'm very grateful for you coming on the show and getting a chance to chat with us and everything like that. I really wish you guys nothing but much success, and I am so excited for what's happening this fall with the games coming out. I'm really hype on Recore. So I'm excited to get a chance to get that and play that.
Good. Like I said, I'm glad we were able to pull this together. I really enjoyed chatting with you at E3. I'm glad we were able to do this, and thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, thank you, definitely. Anchor, is there anything you want to say before Al heads out?
Oh no, just thank you so much for coming on the show. It's an absolute blast.
Awesome, thank you. It was a lot of fun for me too.
Awesome.
Take it easy, guys.
Take it easy, Al. Thank you. You have a great night.
See you.